There have been some attempts in recent years to curb the rise of issues surrounding mental health and the use of social media. Now, one method recently was to remove the dislikes counter button on YouTube. And another is the new option to hide the number of likes one gets on Instagram. That is, when you post something or when you see someone else's posts, you can choose whether or not you want to see how many likes this person got on their content. Of course, there are a few economic and marketing reasons or factors involved with such decisions by these big tech companies. After all, there is a lot of big money there. But supposedly, a big reason for such efforts was to help curb the culture of comparison and the hurt feelings associated with attaching popularity with sharing content. Now, such developments ought to lead us to reflect on the central theme of the gospel today, and that's envy. Envy. The landowner said, "Why be envious? Because I am generous." Now, in a previous homily, I've described once how social media likes to play upon vulnerabilities in human psychology to keep a person constantly engaged on their platforms, what I called a culture of monstrous distraction. Things like the infinity scroll feature, which functions like a pokey slot machine, enticing you to keep scrolling down your page to get your next dose of content, because you never know what you're going to get next with each and next swipe. I also talked about studies that have shown that people are more likely to stare at something negative and outrageous online than something positive and calm. It's this negativity bias, as it's been coined. That is, if it is more outraging and angering, it is more engaging. Anger keeps people engaged on such platforms, facilitating an attitude of condemn more and understand less, rewarding fury and penalizing mercy. For example, you are more likely to get views on your YouTube video if it contains words like so-and-so destroys, obliterates, humiliates, or smashes so-and-so. You're likely to get more engagement if you have those provocative words. But what about this insidious passion called envy? Now, here are a few definitions from our spiritual tradition about this insidious passion. Envy is a self-centered sadness at the blessings of another. Envy is a resentful sadness that refuses to share in another's joy. Or as St. Thomas Aquinas put it, envy is an irrational anger at the success of others, where we consider the happiness of another as a hindrance to my own happiness. And on the flip side, envy eventually becomes joy when it looks at the misfortune and the suffering that befalls another. As one novelist characterized it this way, when a friend of mine succeeds, something in me dies. Envy is what the church has long held from the very earliest centuries as one of the 7 capital sins, or the 7 deadly sins. The word capital comes from the word kaput, which means head, and therefore it's a kind of fountainhead which flows into and feeds other sins and dysfunctions. So if I am racked by envy, that is going to give rise to all sorts of nasty stuff and behaviors. Now, not to harp on about social media, as I know not everyone uses it, but it is an easy and prominent example today of how this passion plays out in quite a destructive way. It's not just among young people, but it is quite across the board. And it's this phenomenon of an acute sadness when you see someone having a better time than you, or seeing someone post their latest success, that instead of rejoicing at the other person's good, we become sad or resentful or even angry, especially when that person's good brings them a certain honor and esteem, that their success becomes my death. So how does envy express itself? Well, the obvious one is through gossip. Why do we gossip? Because in one way we want to put people down. We want to lower or destroy another's reputation. The envy itself may lurk below the surface, but it comes out in bitter sarcasm, cynical comments, and in nasty criticisms. And this is when this tall poppy syndrome can become quite destructive. This definitely manifests on the online world. I've seen in many studies and just asking friends even yesterday, the amount of passive aggressive bullying that occurs, especially amongst school students, is quite rampant and rife online, especially amongst young women. Just consult all the literature about this hidden or not so hidden culture of aggression online. Now, technology has made cruelty chillingly simple, subtle, and very much commonplace. As I speak this, I know it's quite ironic because the printer wasn't working this morning, so I'm relying on technology to help me get through this homily. But for myself, I grew up in this social media generation when it really first started with things like MySpace and then Bebo and then Twitter and Facebook and what else? Yeah, Instagram came about, and I knew all too well, especially as a school student, as a teenager, growing up as a young adult, how easy it was to get up in this popularity math of trying to search for likes and hearts and shares and thumbs up and this attention online, seeing who would actually like what I would post, but also who wouldn't like it and eventually be disrupting of my time and even my well-being. At the root of it, envy, you could say, is informed by a lack of awareness of the gifts that have been bestowed on us for our own unique happiness. It distracts us from our own blessedness, and we become obsessed with the joy and success of others. So when we envy, we reject our own uniqueness, and it becomes a very much criticism of God's unique plan for our own lives. Part of the issue in this gospel today was this worker was so focused on what his fellow worker earned that he immediately jumped to comparison and envy, showing that comparison is really the thief of joy. Envy and pride, as the scriptures say, was what caused the devil to fall. As the book of wisdom says, by the envy of the devil, death came into the world. So when envy, when acted upon, becomes a sharing in the devil's own word, because it brings about division and disunity, not just in the soul, but towards my neighbor. And that's why St. Augustine called envy the diabolical sin. So what do we do with regards to this inner passion of envy that we may be tempted to feel? Now, according to the spiritual tradition, what alleviates envy is gratitude. Firstly, we need a grateful awareness of our own gifts and uniqueness, that in light of the Heavenly Father's love for us, we can see our neighbor's good and their happiness even as our own. And to be grateful is to recognize the love of God in everything. So gratitude and thanksgiving are fundamental attitudes in the spiritual life, and they alleviate the toxicity of envy. And we ask ourselves, if gratitude is not a part of our daily spiritual life, especially our prayer, then we must ask ourselves whether our spiritual life is caught up in self-absorption, that we turn to God only when we need Him or need to ask for things. The reason why we come to Mass is purely to come to ask God for things, then we forget the very meaning of the word Eucharist. So the word Eucharist in the Greek is eu means good, and charis is the word for grace and gift. So Eucharist literally means a good gift or a good grace. And that is why the Eucharist is understood as the sacrifice of thanksgiving. It's a recognition of the good gift of Jesus, who pours himself out in his body and blood. So despite coming to Mass, this thanksgiving sacrifice, we would also do well to cultivate time each day in thanksgiving to God, meditating and pondering our own uniqueness and blessedness. Many saints have recommended spending a few minutes each day, either at the start or the end of your day, and it's a habit worth cultivating. St. Ignatius calls one of those prayers the examine prayer, the grace to just look upon your day in thanksgiving to God, and also asking God for the grace to see where I need to change for the day forward. And to close, as St. John Vianney says, when we don't envy the good fortune of our neighbor, when we never speak evil of them, we shall enjoy a sweet peace, and our soul will be calm, and we shall find paradise on earth. Amen.